Welcome back to Close Up. We've got a high-profile U.S. Senate race in New Hampshire this year, but before we can get to November, we've got to figure out who will win the Republican nomination. One of the GOP contenders joins us in studio this morning, Kevin Smith. Thanks for coming in.
Adam, thanks for having me. It's great to be back on with you.
Yeah. So, you ran for governor a decade ago,
right.
And some people still probably know who you are, but it's remarkable how much the electorate turns over, even cycle to cycle. So,
right.
Give us a sense of who you are and why you're running.
Yeah. So, Adam, I've been the town manager in Londonderry for the last 8+ years. I've also been the chairman of the Peace Development Authority, and we've had a tremendous amount of success over that time. Fastest growing community for economic development. We've returned over $11 million to the property taxpayers and budget surpluses, have grown the value of the town by $2.2 billion, and we've done it by working together, finding common sense solutions, which is in stark contrast to what we're seeing right now in Washington, where Maggie Hassan is a part of the failures down there, where you have runaway spending, which has led to huge amounts of inflation. The prices at the gas pump are very high. Home heating oil is as expensive as it's been in a long time. And so I want to bring these common sense solutions and this can-do spirit of working together, local values to Washington to actually get things done for a change, Adam.
And the resume in Londonderry in terms of economic development speaks for itself. Some other items on the resume as well. Cornerstone, you were an activist at the State House, led the charge essentially against same-sex marriage back a decade ago. We spoke previously and you said your views have evolved on that issue. What changed your mind?
Well, Adam, I think there's a number of things that have happened in the 10+ years since that time. My values haven't changed, but at the same time, the Supreme Court weighed in on this. I think they've had the final say on it, and I think people have moved on from this issue. And that's indicative, Adam, of the things that folks are talking to me about as I go around the state of New Hampshire. They're talking about those, what I call kitchen table issues. It's the economy. It's going into the grocery store, seeing how much things cost, not being able to find what you need at the grocery store. I was commenting to someone, even the cats and dogs can eat their own brands anymore because things still aren't on the shelves. And those are the issues that folks are talking to me about, and those are the issues I'm going to champion in Washington.
You've also worked in a leadership capacity at the Division of Juvenile Justice within HHS. And I'm curious for your perspective on what's come to light about what happened at the YDC, these allegations of abuse against counselors there.
Oh, well, they're reprehensible, and they need to be investigated, and certainly folks who broke the law need to be prosecuted to the fullest extent. My record when I was at the Division for Juvenile Justice Services speaks for itself. We got good reforms in there, worked on things like restorative justice, worked on things like alternatives to juvenile detention, and consequently, it worked because now YDC is essentially being shut down, and we're finding good community programs that are effective for juvenile offenders elsewhere. But certainly those folks who broke the law, they need to be prosecuted to the fullest extent.
Of course, yeah, and innocent until proven guilty they are. But
absolutely.
Why do you think so many of these individuals were able to allegedly commit these acts over so many years?
Adam, I think there's a lot of questions or answers to questions that we don't know yet. But certainly I hope the state does investigate those things and finds out the answers to it, because it can never be allowed to happen again.
President Trump looms over this Senate primary, and there were some rumblings this last week that the former president wants a primary challenger to Governor Chris Sununu. We have to note here the source is Corey Lewandowski, who was supposedly excommunicated from Trump world for allegedly sexually harassing the wife of a top Trump donor. And it's probably important to note as well that Mr. Lewandowski has testified before Congress that he, quote, has no obligation to be honest with the media. That being said, this could happen. So would you support a MAGA challenger to Governor Chris Sununu?
Look, I fully support Governor Sununu. I've had a great working relationship with him during my time as town manager, and also again at the Peace Development Authority as chairman there. I believe as a party, Adam, we're much better united than divided. I hearken back to what Ronald Reagan said when he said, my 80% friend is not my 20% enemy. My assumption is that the former president and Governor Sununu will work out their differences between now and the next election, and I fully expect we're going to be united in taking out folks like Maggie Hassan flipping that seat and making sure that folks like Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi are no longer in charge anymore in Washington.
Let's talk about some foreign policy. You mentioned former President Ronald Reagan. It used to be a binary world, the United States and the USSR, and no one would love to have it that way again more than Vladimir Putin. What's the most effective way to contain his aggression in Eastern Europe without ending up in that situation we all feared in the 1980s of another massive world war?
Yeah. You know, this is a very serious issue what's going on right now, and I think it requires a very sober response. You know, Putin is a bully. We know that. And bullies, they respond to strength. And for better or worse, with the Biden administration, our stature in the global world has been weakened. That being said, number one, I do not believe we should be committing troops to any conflict that occurs there. I think there's many more effective ways that we can punish Putin on this. We can do economic sanctions and cut their pipeline off to certain banks. We can show President Zelensky and the Ukrainian military that we're in solidarity with them by giving the equipment and the arms they need to fight the conflict themselves, along with their European allies. And so those, I think, are very effective means of things we can do. Let me say one more point on this matter. You know, we used to be energy independent, and now we're importing oil from Russia. The Biden administration essentially gave the keys to Putin for the Nord Stream 2 oil pipeline. And so now he's enriching himself with that. So we need to be very careful that whatever we do, we want to punish Vladimir Putin for what he's doing. At the same time, we don't want to punish the American consumer with higher gas prices, higher oil prices. And again, we wouldn't be in this spot if we were still energy independent.
You're a big sports fan. Are you going to be watching the Winter Olympics from China? There are a lot of athletes who are staying out of the opening ceremonies. Some people are comparing this to the 1936 Olympics in Berlin, obviously, which another authoritarian regime used to kind of for propaganda purposes. So are you going to watch these Olympics, or are you going to boycott?
Well, Adam, I'll be watching them, and certainly respect those, by the way, who are speaking out against the human rights violations that are going on in China. I can't tell you how outraged I was to recently see Speaker Pelosi say that the athletes shouldn't be criticizing China while they're over there. We ought to be cheering them on and encouraging to speak out against the human rights violations. Can you imagine for a moment if the Russian government said to their athletes, don't criticize the United States of America for fear of retribution? That's absolutely wrong, Adam. And so we need to speak out again against the human rights violations that are going on in China. And I certainly hope any athlete who feels strongly to do that will feel empowered to do that and encouraged to do that, and will know that as a country we have their back.
On the subject of China, do you believe COVID-19 may have escaped from a lab there in Wuhan rather than occurred naturally?
Adam, here's what I know. We haven't investigated it far enough. The investigations that have been done have been tepid at best. But we need to investigate the origins of where it came from. Instead, what's happening right now is you have folks like Maggie Hassan who are looking to divide people over masks and vaccines and mandates, and no one's asking the tough questions about something that has disrupted every aspect of our lives for the last 2 years. And why aren't they doing it? Why aren't they asking those tough questions of China? And certainly, if I'm fortunate enough to serve in the U.S. Senate, you better believe I'll be asking those questions. And I wish Senator Hassan would do it, but she just hasn't been. She's been absent on that issue.
What's an appropriate consequence if it is indeed a lab-created virus?
Oh, I think it needs to be a global response. And it's certainly, again, something like economic sanctions should be put on China. But look, they're so closed off to the rest of us. You know, you think about the Western world and how open we are and would welcome foreign entities in to investigate if there was anything that happened in one of our countries. But yet they won't allow anyone in. And they pretend that they do. They put out the propaganda that they do, but it's just not happening.
You're a dad, and I'm sure college costs figure in sort of your mind in a big way these days. So student debt is financially crippling almost an entire generation now of young people. What would you be doing about that if you're in the U.S. Senate?
Well, you're right on that I am a dad, and I've got kids that are going to be going to college very soon. In fact, one of them has already been accepted to Keene State.
Congratulations.
They'll be attending there next year. And Adam, look, I still have 3 payments left on my own student loans. So number one, this idea of canceling student loan debt, Absolutely not. You know, everyone who has paid that debt, who has gone to school, they've had to do it. And then, because once you cancel that debt, what's next? What debt are we going to pay off next? And that, of course, only adds to our national debt if we were to do that, which is causing all of the inflation right now. I'm really looking at, I think the free market's going to lead the way here. I think universities and institutions, especially, you know, community colleges, places like Southern New Hampshire University, which has done an amazing job of offering online courses, that's going to be the way in the future. I think the traditional bricks and mortar of universities they're not going to go away, but they're going to have to change their model. Here's the other thing, too. We are not stressing the need enough for trades in our country, and we're in a deficit right now. The skills, a number of labor force with that skill set doesn't exist right now, Adam, and so we should be stressing that more for men and women who want to go into that area.
A lot of Republicans want someone to go to Washington to fight the Democrats. So you've talked about wanting to work across the aisle, and that's something every candidate says, though. Yeah. But why seek bipartisan cooperation with a party so many in your party believe is trying to take America in a negative direction?
Well, Adam, I think there are issues of commonality that we can work on. Look at something like the southern border, right? Maggie Hassan, and I've kind of joked, I've called her Maggie Hasn't, she hasn't done much on that issue. She hasn't done anything on the inflationary costs. She hasn't done anything for, you know, standing up for parental rights and education. But going back to the southern border, to me, there's many common sense solutions we could do on a matter like that, where both parties could work together with one another, and starting with securing the border. Because right now, what we're seeing is this huge influx of drugs like fentanyl flowing across the border, and people want something to be done about it. Many administrations have talked about it. It's time to get something done on that particular issue.
All right, Kevin Smith, U.S. Senate candidate, thanks for joining us on Close Up. We'll see you out there on the campaign trail.
Adam, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, we appreciate it.